In an old part of the city, there was a library. Tucked between a button shop and a bakery, it hid well. The library looked small from the outside, with faded paint and dusty windows. People hurried past, not noticing the quiet invitation of the old wooden door. The library didn't mind. It was used to waiting. It seemed ordinary at a glance, but if you truly looked, you might feel something, a little shiver, a pull. The air around it hummed with a secret. It was a place where stories slept, dreaming of readers. The bricks held sighs and whispers from long ago. It was a place full of quiet expectation, like a held breath before a surprise. This library was magical, but not in a flashy way. It remembered everyone who had ever stepped inside. It remembered their shoes, their smiles, their worries. The whispers you might hear were echoes of past readers. The city grew and changed, but the library remained a steadfast keeper of tales. It knew that someday someone would need it, and it would be ready. Ella was a curious girl who liked to explore. She had a cat named Mittens, black as night with white paws. One evening, as rain began to fall, Mittens darted out the back door. Ella called after him and ran into the wet evening. Mittens was a black streak running down the alleyway. Ella followed, calling his name, feeling a little lost. She turned a corner and saw a little building she had never noticed before. A library. The sign above the door was old, but she could just make out the word library. A soft, warm light came from one of its dusty windows. She thought she saw a flicker of a black tail disappear through the slightly open door. Ella pushed the old wooden door, which creaked softly. The air inside was warm and smelled of old paper and something sweet and strange. It felt familiar, like a half-remembered dream. She stepped inside, out of the rain. The door closed behind her with a gentle click. The sounds of the city faded away. It was very quiet in here, a deep, comforting quiet. And there, by a bookshelf, sat Mittens, calmly washing his face. The library was bigger on the inside than it looked from the street. Rows of bookshelves stretched away into the dim light. Dust motes danced in the beams of light from shaded lamps. It was a listening silence, as if the whole room was holding its breath. Ella felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. Mittens purred and trotted off to explore. Ella walked slowly down an aisle, feeling the books watching her. She ran her fingers along their spines, which felt warm to the touch. A soft humming filled the air. Suddenly a book tumbled from a high shelf, floating down gently to her feet. It was a slim volume, bound in dark blue leather with a silver star on the cover. The star began to glow and pictures started to move on the cover. Ella saw a dark forest, a winding path, and a tiny figure walking towards a distant light. The book seemed to be inviting her. She knelt down and picked it up, feeling a faint energy. She opened the cover, and the air around her shimmered as she felt herself falling into the book. Ella landed softly in a forest with trees glowing with a soft silver light. Strange, beautiful flowers bloomed at her feet. Small, furry creatures with bright eyes peeked at her. A squirrel with a tiny silver crown hopped onto her shoulder, chattering in a language she understood. It told her they needed help to find a lost star. Ella agreed to help them on their quest. The next book took her to a city made of clouds. She met a grumpy sky captain who had lost his lucky compass. Ella helped him figure out the clues hidden in the stars. The captain thanked her with a ride on his magnificent cloud ship. Another book pulled her into an underwater kingdom with coral castles and merfolk. They had a riddle from an ancient sea turtle. Ella solved it, and the merfolk cheered. Each adventure was different, each world new and strange. She learned courage, kindness, and the power of stories. The library was teaching her, book by book, page by page. When Ella found herself back in the quiet library, it felt different. Or maybe she was different. The air still smelled of old paper and magic, but now it felt more familiar. Mittens was asleep on a plush velvet chair. The rain had stopped, and moonlight illuminated a path between the shelves. The books seemed to hum a gentle song of welcome. As she walked towards the front, a particular book caught her eye. It sat alone on a small table, glowing with a gentle light. It seemed to be calling to her. Ella picked it up, feeling a shiver of anticipation. On the first page, in beautiful handwriting, were 2 words, your story, and underneath her own name, Ella. The pages were blank, waiting for her story to be written. The library had shown her so many stories. Now, it was her turn to write her own chapters. The forgotten library had given her the greatest gift of all, the key to her own unfolding tale.